loved about law school was that it empowered me so much that I'm learning contracts law and secured transactions and landlord-tenant and all of these sorts of things that are very useful in daily life. Even if you never practice law, they help you in negotiating the world, and I just felt like every day I was getting more powerful. And I love the subject matter, and I really love the way that I was forced to think so much more clearly than I'd ever been forced to think before. One example is my contracts professor asked me in class how I thought a particular dispute should come out and who should win. And I said, well, this party should win. And he said, why? And I said, well, because it's fair. And he said, why is it fair? You've got to go deeper. You know, what makes it fair? And nobody had ever asked me to do that kind of thing. Nobody had ever challenged me that much, and I so enjoyed being pushed to really think about why things should be the way they are. One thing that law school does is help you to see both sides so much better. When I was younger and before I started law school, I just thought the world was one way. It was what my opinion was. And when you get into law school, you're forced to sometimes argue for a side that you disagree with, or make an argument in favor of a position that you don't necessarily support. And in doing that, you begin to sort of see that there's a little more to it than maybe you thought originally. And I also liked that very much, learning to see the world and the way it works in a deeper way. Did I think there was gender discrimination? Actually, I felt a lot of support from my fellow students, and I was good at what I was doing, and I think I felt comfortable because of that, I think. Some of the faculty were a little old-fashioned, and one in particular, he was teaching property law, and of course in law school classes the faculty asked questions of students, and he said he would not ask questions of the women at all. Except for one day, and he was going to have Ladies' Day. And he did. That day he decided to call on us, and the questions were all about, if you broke your engagement, who got to keep the ring? So we went up to him after that class and we said, Professor, if you think it's fun to have Ladies' Day, then do you think you ought to be having Black Day? And he goes, oh, no, I guess I shouldn't be doing this. And it kind of got through to him that that wasn't the right thing to do. Another faculty member would go down the row calling on students, and he'd usually stay with one student for maybe 5-10 questions and really push them hard to kind of think through the material. But every time he got to a woman, he would ask her one very easy question, and then he'd immediately pass on to somebody else. And it was obvious he thought we weren't up to the challenge, or he was afraid what would happen if he pushed us very hard. And so there were some people like that, but most of them treated us the same as everyone else and made us work for it. Very smart group of people, the ones who decide to go to law school. And they have a lot of confidence, by and large, and they are good talkers. They like to discuss things. They have ideas. They have their own ideas. They are fun because they will argue with you and challenge you. I really remember my first day practicing law, but I can remember that first year pretty well. One time I remember I thought I had a landlord-tenant case settled, and I came into work the next day not expecting to go to trial, and it turns out that I had misunderstood the settlement, that I had thought that it would be okay for my client to pay later, and the other attorney expected cash that day, which my client didn't have, and I was in no way prepared to go to trial. My law school didn't have a clinic. They hadn't taught me how to try a case. And I went running to my boss and I said, I don't know what to do. And he said, it's okay. I'll go do it and you come along and you watch me. And he was so helpful and so supportive, and that kind of got me through that terrible experience. And I learned a lot from it, and the next time I was ready to go to trial, no matter what. In my first 2 years of practice, I wondered if I was being treated differently because I was a woman. It seemed to me that the lawyers who were opposing me, who were representing opposing parties, were very condescending and patronizing, and I thought, well, it must be because I'm a woman. And there weren't very many women in law practice at the time. This was about 1971, 72. And that's what I thought was going on. But as I got better after about 2 years and I began to know what I was doing, that stopped. And then I would talk to young male lawyers, and they were experiencing the same thing. And I got to thinking it's more that inexperience where you really don't know what a good negotiation is. You don't know how you should actually resolve a matter, and somebody's trying to lead you through it because they do know. And so I decided ultimately that it was not so much my gender. I think my personality is such that I've always had a lot of confidence in myself, and I just really have not worried too much about the fact that I'm a woman. And I think if you believe that you can do things, it helps a lot. The thing I'm most proud of in my career was that I always have cared about having lawyers who will represent people who don't have a lot of money. And so when I started out, I was a legal services lawyer, and I really enjoyed feeling that I could be of service to people who otherwise couldn't afford to hire a lawyer. And luckily, when I started teaching, I got to do the same thing. I was teaching students how to represent clients who didn't have money. And it was interesting because a lot of the students who had never been around people who were at that level in society, who were so lacking in money and skills. And a lot of my students, I think, had certain prejudices or feelings that they wouldn't respect their clients much. And it was so rewarding as to watch them as they began to see their clients as real people that they liked. They had personalities, they had points of view, they were interesting people. And the students would actually enjoy their work, and they would leave law school wanting to do some pro bono work, maybe some of them wanting to go into the kind of legal services work that I was familiar with. And I felt that it was extremely rewarding to work with students to get them to understand that part of law practice. Some areas of law practice can be cooperative. I think about lawyers who work in regulation, where they're working with clients and trying to get them to comply with the law, for example, to comply with environmental regulations, etc. That's not necessarily an adversarial sort of experience. Lawyers who litigate are more likely to be in an adversarial environment because you've got different sides who are opposed to each other, you have different goals, and you're trying to achieve the best for your client, and that can be very adversarial at times. I really enjoyed being a lawyer. I'm retired now. But counting law school, I was in law practice and the legal field for 42 years. And I really, really enjoyed it. And I think it was fun being a woman, doing that, because I did get a lot of respect from other people that otherwise I might not have had. It's a field that allows you to do a lot of things that you couldn't do if you didn't have that education. And I really appreciated having that power and ability to function at that level.